This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and got a governor's election in Illinois. Obviously, other statewide constitutional offices as well, and legislative races. But with two leftist plutocrats running for governor in the two major parties.
Yeah, I don't know which one's more progressive.
Leftist, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Governor Ron or JB?
Well, it's stiff competition, and that's the only thing stiff between the two of those
Hey-o.
gentlemen. But is this an option, a third-party candidacy? Is that something that you'll consider this cycle? I mean, this is very much like, Gary Johnson's run when you had two candidates of the two major parties that were not particularly well-liked by the general electorate. So the question for Kash Jackson, Libertarian candidate for Illinois, is do you know where Aleppo is? Do you know what Aleppo is? Because we don't want you to fall prey to the Gary Johnson problem.
I think I pinpointed it.
Okay, very good. And the reason you can is because you're somewhat steeped in these geopolitical and national security issues because your background is military. Tell us.
Absolutely, yeah. Spent 20 years in the United States Navy, retired in 2016 at the ripe old age of 37. And I did have the opportunity to travel all around the world, circumnavigate the globe, albeit we did cheat inside the submarine, went to the top of the globe and did the smallest circle we possibly could. But I did get to circumnavigate the globe. But yeah, I did my time in the military and now I'm in politics.
Hot rodding in a nuclear sub. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good.
That's the only way to
ride.
go.
Yeah, that's
the only
right.
way to travel. But you were born in Louisiana, and you were stationed up here for a while, and now do you live here? You call this place home?
So right now I live up in Antioch in Lake County, maybe 2 miles from the Wisconsin border.
Oh, yeah.
And love it up there. Live up there around a bunch of big horse farms and my little 3-bedroom, 1-bath farmhouse, and I like it up there.
Well, so speaking of that, we did a story in one of my papers about that, talking about property taxes. Lake County, I think, is the county 22nd or 23rd ranked county in the nation in terms of highest property taxes. So you're talking about 4 and 5% of home value up there. Huge issue. And in Antioch, we compared a couple of houses on Cross Lake, one on the Wisconsin side, the other on the Illinois side, just about 5 piers apart. And the bigger house on the Wisconsin side had a property tax bill that was about half of the smaller house on the Wisconsin side. And this, in part, is a way to just kind of crystallize and tell the story about property taxation in Illinois. And I wonder, where you come down on what we should do about the highest property taxes in the nation.
Well, it's something that personally affected me. I owned a home there in Lake Villa. Purchased it in 2009 whenever I was first stationed up here. My property taxes that year were $4,500. I sold that home in 2015. My taxes were just shy of $9,000. And it was
almost a doubling in 6 years, right?
It did, yeah. It effectively doubled in a 6-year time frame. And I'm a fan of the Illinois Policy Institute and the proposals that they have made to address property taxes. I would like to see a 5-year property tax freeze enacted for home rule and non-home rule to give people's wages time to kind of catch up, but then to work to regress those taxes. They're entirely too much, and they're really hurting Illinois citizens, and we know it's a large part of our out-migration statewide.
So why are you running for governor?
Well,
basic question, but
yes, it is a basic question.
Ted Kennedy could answer it.
You've had an accomplished career. You're retired now, and you were a drill sergeant up here at
Yeah, well, so we're called a recruit division commander, but in layman's terms, a drill instructor.
Okay,
yes.
Drill instructor.
At Great Lakes.
Great Lakes, yes. So why do you want to be governor?
Well, I want to be governor because I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, for the better part of 2 decades. And we can see every single day here in Illinois where our constitutional rights are being continuously infringed upon. Recently, we had there in Deerfield where they just passed their township ordinance where you can't possess semi-automatic firearms, pistols, and rifles. And it's things like that that drove me into politics. I'm like, this is absolutely uncalled for in a country that I served for 20 years.
And why the Libertarian Party as opposed to the other two major parties?
Well, I believe in maximizing freedom and minimizing government. And I don't think that anybody can argue that the size of government with 7,000 local units of government in our state is entirely too large. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to shrink big government, and I want to maximize personal individual freedoms. And the Libertarian Party is the one that seeks to do that.
And you need help still getting on the ballot, correct? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so ballot access is extremely restricted for third parties and independents, and I have to get 25,000 minimum good signatures to get onto the ballot. And it's an uphill climb, but it's something that the Libertarian Party has been successful at in previous election cycles, and it's something we'll be successful at this year as well.
How many signatures do you have so far?
Well, it just started. He was only allowed to circulate in the last week, right?
Yeah. So we just began petition circulation a week ago, and I would venture to say, I'm just guessing here, that we're probably over 1,000 right now.
So, so you get the 50,000 signatures, so you can withstand a challenge. Good signatures, you get on the ballot. Is the real goal here 5%? And because 5%, for those who don't know, means that the Libertarian Party then would be able to run and have the same ballot access as the Republican and Democrat Party in terms of signature requirements and time frame and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So 5% is absolutely a goal that we have and want to achieve for us to become an established party in the state, making us more competitive in 2024 local elections. Mm-hmm. And we can see that like in McLean County, where we've got 8 individuals running for local seats there because Gary Johnson had broken 5% in that county whenever he ran. And that's something that we need to do. And I think where it really benefits Illinois citizens when we do that is that in areas that are heavily gerrymandered, where it's really not feasible for, say, a Republican to run a candidate inside a Democratic stronghold, Libertarians can be much more competitive inside those areas. And this is an area in which it would really benefit Illinois citizens to have third parties like the Libertarian Party have that ballot access to do that and get to take some of those seats.
And and let me suggest that this is your argument. You tell me if I'm right. Is that Libertarians? I mean, sometimes people have the perception because of the free market nature of libertarian economic thought that Libertarians, they just take votes away from Republicans. And in point of fact, if you look at some examples of Libertarian candidates, they pull. Now, it's not big numbers at this point, but they pull from both parties. So they can pull in some Bernie Sanders types, and then they can pull in some Friedmanites on that would otherwise vote Republican.
Absolutely, yeah. Generally speaking, we do pull about an even number from Republicans and Democrats, and it's not uncommon for me to hear, "Well, you're going to steal votes." Well, I'm not stealing anything. Mm-hmm. I'm earning people's votes by getting my voice out there and by campaigning and putting the work in to earn those votes. That's what I'm doing. And if a Republican or a Democrat loses the election and they feel it's because of that, well, I'm going to tell them you didn't work hard enough and you should have earned those votes the same way that I did.
So what are you hearing about people's concerns as you travel, through the counties? And I know besides property taxes, is there anything else?
Absolutely. The pension system is, of course, a looming issue when we have between $130 to $200 billion in unfunded pensions. And again, I'm going to kind of revert to the pragmatic point of view from the Illinois Policy Institute to incorporate the 401k system in the state of Illinois. And those are the two largest issues that I run into is just the pensions and property taxes. And then third, of course, is jobs. And if we can address those two, the two large issues, then, of course, we can begin working towards bringing jobs back in Illinois as well. So those are kind of the three big ones.
Where are you on some of the other sort of contentious in some respects, emotional issues, but also moral issues, because you've got two people that are on the same side on so many issues: sanctuary state, taxpayer funding of abortion, not so much on guns, junk science, I would say, on gender. And so it provides an opportunity maybe for social conservatives to feel comfortable voting Libertarian, but that requires that your positions would be different than Rauner's and Pritzker's.
Right. Well, I will say this, just as an individual, I am personally pro-life, whereas the Libertarian Party itself doesn't take a position. They say that the government should not be involved in any regard. I am personally pro-life, and that's something that I will espouse very readily. And that's something that differentiates myself between Bruce Rauner and J.B. Pritzker. Immigration is another issue, and it's not one probably where I'll align with a lot more on conservatives, because I don't believe that individuals that are here that are honestly working, that have jobs, many of them are entrepreneurs. I think I read in the Harvard Business Review that approximately 15% of immigrants have their own businesses, and they account for about 25% of the entrepreneurial market. And so those people who are here and they're working and they're contributing, I would like to see it streamlined so that those people that are working and are contributing, that we could help to ease that process to transition them into naturalized citizens. But those that are violent criminals, those that cannot conform to American ideals and values, I would definitely be an advocate of immediately deporting, especially any violent criminals.
What about sanctuary city and sanctuary state designations?
I am, because I am a libertarian, I'm not a fan of helping out the federal government to do their job. It is the federal government's job to enforce immigration. It is not the state's job to enforce immigration. My job is to find real viable solutions to issues, very complex issues that we're facing. And one of the most complex issues that our state is facing is out-migration. And if we have people here that are working and they're willing to work, I would much rather find a more fiscally and morally responsible approach to help to naturalize those responsible people that want to be American citizens and uphold those values.
Well, you can have it both ways. You can't say on the one hand, there's a naturalization issue, and that's a federal policy issue, and I want to get involved in that. But when it comes to federal immigration law enforcement, I don't want to get involved because that's a federal issue. So if you want to be involved as an advocate, then you have to be willing to weigh in on the range of issues. And so the question is, if you were governor and it got to your desk, would you repeal sanctuary state or would you veto that legislation?
That would be a decision that I'd have to come to with my policy team to really find out whether or not that is something that, again, is a morally responsible thing to do. And is it fiscally responsible? Because immigrants are providing a tremendous amount of revenue to our state. They do help to lower costs in a variety of areas. They are paying, when they rent places, into property taxes. So in all honesty, that could potentially hurt our state. And so that's something that we have to take a very, very close look at. And it's not something that I would just jump to and make a decision on.
On a lighter note, besides your parents giving you the name Kash, is it a family name?
No, it's actually a chosen name. So it's Grayson Kash Jackson, and I actually went through a formal name change about a year ago. And I did so because I was raised by my maternal grandparents. I was not raised by the paternal side of my family. And I wanted to pay tribute to both sides of my family, so I chose the name Grayson Kash Jackson.
Interesting. And then you've got this AG candidate and the Libertarian slate named Bubba. So you got Bubba and Cash, which sounds like a buddy cop film.
Bubba and Cash, yeah.
And then also, too, the song, the governor's race, they may have billions, but we have the cash.
But we have the cash, right.
Get it? Huh?
No, I don't get it.
Oh.
Yeah. So how many hundreds of millions of dollars of your own money are you going to put into this race?
Well, you know what? I think I still have $5 in change in my truck right now, but I'm probably going to have to use that on tolls on my way back home.
Mm-hmm. What about that? What about as a candidate, even if there are more modest and attainable goals, and there's nothing wrong with that, thinking long term about the party. I wish Republicans would do the same thing in this state, but they don't. But what about trying to get your message out and maximize this opportunity with the prospect of two candidates that are going to slug it out with hundreds of millions of dollars and probably both end up not being particularly popular among the general electorate?
Right. Well, you know what? I was really impressed by Jeannie Ives' campaign, the fact that they ran such a strong grassroots effort. I think they spent on average $12 per vote as opposed to Bruce Rauner's $250 per vote, which just goes to show you that money doesn't always equate to success. She was very, very successful in that campaign, and that's something we want to seek to duplicate in ours.
All right.
And then where can people learn more information about you?
They can go to cash2018.com, Cash with a K, and they can also, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, so if you just search Kash with a K, Kash Jackson, it's not going to be too hard to find me.
Kash Jackson.
You got to do some fun videos.
Yeah,
with
you
this,
got to go.
with this
I'm
name.
Kash.
You got to do
Kash Jackson.
Get Carl Weathers to endorse you, or Action Jackson to endorse Kash Jackson. Something to make this indelible. Kash Jackson, Libertarian candidate for governor. You can follow him at Twitter at Kash with a K, Kash Jackson 2018. You just heard the website, Kash. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you guys for having me on.
It's like a